It might look weird, but this woman had a very good reason for breaking into her ex's house. She climbed up to the window with a clear plan in mind: get in and get out without him noticing anything. But all of that backfired the instant she was inside. Because he already had something planned. Woman tried to break into ex's house, but he already had something planned. Wendy stood below the window with nerves all over her body. If he found out why she was breaking in, she was done for. But not breaking in wasn't an option as well. Inside her ex's house was a computer she needed to get to because she sent a harmful email. And it needed deleting. The email she sent just a few hours ago was a mistake. It was sent out of rage and resentment because, in the divorce, Kevin ended up with full custody of their daughter. She wrote a hateful message, and if Kevin were to show it to a judge, she would look insane and never get custody back. There was only one option: to get inside the house as quickly as possible. She needed to get to that computer before he did and delete the harmful message. The window to the first floor was open. It would be a tough climb, but Wendy knew this was her only chance. Wendy hoisted herself up to the first floor window. It was difficult because it rained, making ledges slippery, and the wind blew severely. A massive storm was incoming, and news stations predicted it could hit any moment. So Wendy needed to get back home before it did, or else she would be stuck. When the young mother finally found stable footing on the window's ledge, she opened the window a bit further to climb through. Nice and quiet, she whispered to herself. But the slippery ledge made her lose her footing, and she tumbled forward, landing hard on the floor inside the room. That was not the entrance Wendy hoped for, but she was inside nonetheless. But when her eyes moved upwards, she let out a small scream. She saw two eyes watching her from the other side of the room. They weren't her husband's or her daughter's, though. And an unknown kid was staring at her. The boy was about 8 years old and let out a scream of his own, which made the kid's parents rush inside. They came from an adjoining room, and when Wendy looked closer, she saw that the layout mirrored a hotel room. The parents, who rushed in from the adjacent bathroom, angrily chased Wendy into the hallway. The confused Wendy stood outside the door and looked down a long hallway. The basis of the building was familiar to her. It was her former house, after all. But with the weird, unknown people and the change in decoration, her home was almost unrecognizable to Wendy. What is this place? In the hallway, Wendy's confusion grew even more. People came out of multiple rooms, none of which seemed familiar to her. They all greeted her friendly like they had no idea that she didn't belong there. The onslaught of people coming her way put Wendy on edge. I've made a mistake. I have to get out of here. Wendy ran through the hallway, feeling trapped in her old family home. The young woman felt adrenaline course through her body, and the storm outside added tension to the situation. Thunderstrikes and large hail fragments smashed on the house's roof, making Wendy extremely nervous. Eventually, Wendy made it to the courtyard of the house. Their old home was massive and had an open skylight courtyard in the center of it. She stopped momentarily to catch her breath and peered toward the sky while rethinking her plan. But when her gaze eventually aimed forward, she saw him. Rain poured down the open courtyard, making a veil of water between them. But there was no mistaking it. Kevin stood on the other side of this wall of rain. He was staring at her, and the two individuals were dead silent. "This is it, I've been caught," was the only thing running through Wendy's mind. The impasse finally broke when Kevin started moving. He walked through the hallway that led around the courtyard. "Just 2 turns before he reaches me," Wendy said nervously to herself. The only thing on Wendy's mind was to run. Running toward the exit as fast as she could, and so she did. She knew this building like the back of her hand, even though she did not recognize the people in it. So she knew that if she quickened her steps enough, she could reach the exit before Kevin got to her. With long strides, she made it to the front door. She opened it, but then faith struck. The storm, which all the news stations warned Wendy about, was in full swing. The thunderstrikes and hail were already her warnings, but Wendy never expected it would get this bad, this quickly. Looking out toward her car, she saw that the road was completely flooded, making it impossible to drive off. She was stuck. To Wendy, it was like she was trapped in her worst nightmare. And no matter what she tried to do to wake up, things kept piling on to make it worse. This can't be happening. What do I do? Wendy said anxiously. And then she felt a hand fall on her shoulder. Wendy stood there, frozen in place and terrified of what was coming. There was no way of avoiding the confrontation, but she did not want to turn around. The young woman let out a long, shaky breath before finally mustering the courage to face her former partner. Her body turned a slow 180. Wendy now stood face to face with her ex-husband, Kevin. She was afraid of what he was going to say. But then he said, "Do you like it?" This comment took Wendy aback. Do I like it? I don't really know what there is to like. What is this place? She asked Kevin. Kevin explained that their home changed a bit since she was gone. The place was recently transformed into a bed and breakfast. He stated that their house was massive, much too large for him and their daughter to live in after Wendy was gone. So he decided to rent out some rooms. And things kind of took off after that, Kevin said while smiling carefully. Wendy listened closely to his explanation but felt her throat close up after he asked what she was doing there. "Do you want a room?" he asked. Kevin's friendly attitude felt misleading. Did he know about my secret? Wendy felt this entire thing was a trap, starting when she fell into the house and ending with Kevin's question. But there was no way she could escape. She was backed into a corner, and her car in the driveway proved it. The water rose, and it was covering her tires at this point. But before Wendy could answer the question, Kevin said something she did not expect. He stated that he already wanted to talk to her and even said he had a room planned specially for her. The confident Kevin lifted his hand off Wendy's shoulder and took on an inviting posture. What did Kevin mean by that? He already wanted to talk to me and had a room planned especially for me. Was he expecting me to break in? Was he on to me? A million questions ran through Wendy's mind, but she had answers to none of them. "Come with me," Kevin requested. The confused Wendy obliged and followed her ex-partner quietly. She hoped that he did not already know about her breaking in. She couldn't think of any reason why that was possible. Wendy acted on impulse and did not notify anyone about her plan beforehand. Also, the B&B guests had not contacted Kevin yet. Luckily for Wendy, Kevin then made a comment that calmed her. While they walked, he said he planned for them to meet for weeks now. He wanted to call her this afternoon to schedule an appointment. But I did not expect you to visit out of the blue like this. Did Rose let you in? Rose was their cleaning lady, so Wendy simply nodded, covering her tracks with a simple agreeing nod. Wendy sighed. He didn't know about the break-in. But Kevin did have something planned for me. What's inside that room he planned on showing me? Wendy's thoughts lingered as she speculated about its contents. With every scenario, Wendy's mind got more confused. She was so captivated by what he had planned that she almost forgot about the email. A major mistake since it was the one thing she broke in here for. "I have to delete it," she accidentally whispered. But it was too late because they already arrived at the door. Kevin did not say much when they arrived at the room. He just stretched out his arm, gesturing that she could go inside. Wendy looked at her ex-husband, confused, and placed her trembling hand on the room's door handle. She pressed down slowly, feeling scared about what might be inside. The door of the mysterious room swung open. And when Wendy peeked inside, she saw a cozy living room-style area appear. It looked much like their old family room, but a lot smaller. She recognized the blue velour couch she always hated and their coffee-stained dining table. What is this? But after squinting her eyes and looking more closely, it was not the furniture in the room that grabbed her attention. Wendy's focus was now fully pointed toward the room's back wall, where a switched-on computer stood. The young woman started to panic because she saw her email on the screen. "I can explain," she shouted. It was clear that Wendy wanted to get out of that room as fast as possible. But Kevin told her to go inside and closed the door behind them. Wendy immediately started crying, thinking she might lose her daughter over this one small mistake. She looked into Kevin's eyes and started talking. Wendy explained that the email was a huge mistake. It was written and sent in a moment of anger. But I was only angry because I missed my daughter Molly so much, Wendy said. Kevin didn't say anything while his ex-wife poured her heart out. And when she finished her story, we simply whistled. A rumbling sound was heard from an adjacent room. The last time Wendy heard this sound, a couple of angry parents chased her into the hallway. But this time, her daughter Molly stood in the doorway. The little girl smiled and ran inside the living room and into her mother's arms. Wendy was happy with the loving hug from her daughter. It was something she needed badly. But the embrace also confused her tremendously. Why Kevin? Why allow this after such a horrible email? Kevin explained that Wendy's email did not have the effect she thought it did. When we saw it, it broke our hearts. Kevin explained that after their divorce, the only thing on his mind was getting full custody of Molly. I wanted her to live with me, and I knew I had a good case for it. And apparently, the judge agreed because I won. And everything seemed for the best at first. The judge ruled in my favor because I was the best suited for a stable upbringing. I had a steady income, and with you being bipolar, it was an easy discussion to make. But after a while, we started to realize something. Molly was doing fine on the surface, but one thing became painfully clear. Kevin said that it became clear that Molly missed her mother's love. She was quiet a lot of the time, locking herself in her room and playing by herself. At first, I thought that she just needed more social contact, so when the B&B grew, it helped a little. But it just wasn't enough. Kevin confessed that he made a huge mistake trying to keep Molly all to himself. He was being selfish and did not think about what Molly wanted. Molly needed a mother in her life, and that was also true the other way around. Last night's email proved that, Kevin said with tears in his eyes. We wanted to call you today and ask if you could come over. But weirdly enough, you were already here unannounced. It became awkwardly silent after that remark because, with this heartfelt confession from Kevin, Wendy knew she couldn't keep lying any longer. So she carefully started revealing how she got inside. Wendy explained her break-in attempt and said it backfired the minute she tumbled into the house. Her clumsy attempt at retrieving the email made Kevin and their daughter laugh slightly. And even Wendy had to admit that it sounded pretty hilarious when you added up everything that went horribly wrong. Both father and daughter told Wendy that it was all right. They knew that it came from a good place, and they also knew Wendy to be impulsive like that. With that weight of secrecy lifted off her shoulder, Wendy could finally breathe again. So that's when she asked, "What was it you wanted to talk about?" Kevin said that he and Molly wanted Wendy back into their lives. A girl is not complete without the love of her mother, that much is clear. Kevin stated that he already scheduled an appointment with the judge for the end of the week. And he wanted to ask Wendy if she would agree to share custody again. Wendy was overjoyed after hearing this. She hugged Kevin and even kissed him on the cheek. Wendy agreed instantly and couldn't wait for Friday to arrive. But then she realized that there was still one problem. The storm, the massive downpour, trapped them inside. And it promised to rain for days. But Kevin had a solution. Kevin offered Wendy a room in their B&B. It was a warm and comfortable suite where she could ride out the storm and relax. Wendy accepted the offer and still couldn't believe this was the result of her daring break-in, but she was happy that things turned out this way. And during her stay, something crazy happened. During Wendy's stay at her old house, which was now a B&B, she spent much time with her daughter Molly. It was wonderful, and it made the young mother wish that her stay had never had to end. She also saw how Kevin interacted with Molly a lot more. And that sight gave Wendy a warm feeling inside. In the end, the storm lasted the whole week, stopping exactly on their court date. But during that 7-day span, something miraculous happened. Wendy fell in love with Kevin again. She saw the warmth he had in his heart, and she loved everything about it. And somehow, that feeling was mutual. The day of the hearing became more of a joyous occasion than anything else. All three family members sat in the courtroom smiling, and Kevin said he wanted to give up his full custody. The judge stated this was rare for a parent to do, but Kevin had an even bigger surprise coming. He explained their unique situation to everyone inside the courtroom and then dropped the custody case altogether. He said that he wanted to give their relationship another go. Wendy looked up to Kevin with tears in her eyes and kissed Kevin intensely. They were partners again, but there was more. Their amazing rekindling reached a local news station, who picked it up. Kevin, Wendy, and Molly were interviewed, and their story now inspires others to work on their relationship. The three of them are doing fantastic again at this moment. Wendy's bipolar episodes seem entirely gone, and they are rebuilding their family on newfound love.